our e-invoicing session. So first of all, e-invoicing, as far as e-invoicing, why we are saying it's a technological change, definitely you will understand at the end of the session. But before we will start with our session or today's topic, just at least we should aware about the what is the objective of e-invoicing. Because when GST law was introduced, there were many changes we had seen which are never ever we had said in earlier regime, that is in service tax or VAT regime. Definitely, as far as VAT is concerned, there were a matching of J1, J2. So one can say J1, J2 is it's a hectic, and many of us are still in the litigations of the J1, J2 after almost 6-7 years. Same thing is going to happen in case of GST also, as per our view, because at least J1, J2 in Maharashtra, whatever that was as per TIN number, but now it's an invoice level. And because of e-invoicing, whether litigations are going to increase or whether they are going to minimize, definitely we will see in the future. But at least from the objective, we can get what is the objective, and definitely whether that objective can be fulfilled because of the introduction of the e-invoicing. So friends, if we see objective, or as a firm we feel that the objective of the e-invoicing is mainly to curtail the transaction of the fake invoicing. And why that so? So when GST law was introduced, government always thought about the digitalization. So thought process was always of digitalization. First, when GST law was introduced, at that time they were thinking about the three returns, that is GSTR1, GSTR2, and GSTR3, but that never ever introduced. And they had introduced GSTR1 and 3B and 2A, and now it's a 2B. It's a new version of the 2A. It can be said. But after introduction of these many returns, or even the government having all online data, you aware that in the last few months fake invoicing cases increased very drastically, and many of the even many of the companies or the CEO or the finance heads of the companies are arrested on account of the fake invoicing. So because of to curtail such a transactions, many of the fake firms are formed and the GST registration has been obtained. So to curtail this transaction, e-invoicing could be the or e-invoicing could be one of the way, as may be government thinking, and hence e-invoicing introduced. Now, whether that will curtail or not, we will definitely see afterwards. But as far as objective is concerned, whenever government is thinking some of the with an objective thinking to introduce new something, then definitely the taxpayer is going to suffer on account of compliances and the litigations. And that also we will see how what are the challenges before the taxpayer because of this e-invoicing. But before start our session, first, what is e-invoicing? So many of the queries received to us is that whether the e-invoicing is a separate kind of the invoice, or whether the e-invoicing is in addition to the tax invoice. So friends, please be aware that the e-invoicing first is not a separate invoice. So why it's not separate invoice? So whenever you are issuing the tax invoice, there is one supplier and recipient. So tax invoice is between the supplier and recipient. So always the thought process is that the tax invoice is issued in case of the supply from the supplier to the recipient. So this is the document of understanding between both them. So never ever the introduction of the government for the government in the tax invoice. But now government intended that the tax invoice should be reported to the government on real time. That means first time government is in between the supplier and the recipient, and they are saying that the report your tax invoice to our portal on real time basis. So e-invoicing is not a separate invoice, or it is a not separate form of the invoice. E-invoicing is only reporting of your tax invoice to the government authorities. It's nothing else. So one can say it's a manner to report your tax invoice. So whatever tax invoice you are at or companies are at presently preparing, you have to prepare that as it is tax invoice. just a method that that tax invoice has to be reported to the government portal before you are proceeding with the transaction, and that reporting is on real time basis. So whenever you prepare the tax invoice, please report it to the government portal. So to report it government portal, it is manner of the e-invoicing to report that government, some process is prescribed, and there are some applications. So it's not applicable to all transaction, it's not applicable to all entity. So we have to say to whom it is applicable. So in today's session, we are going to discuss first applicability of the invoicing. That means to whom it is going to be applicable and what you have to see for the purpose of applicability of the invoicing. So first we will discuss the applicability of the invoicing. So your queries related to whether my company is going to cover in the invoicing or not, that will get solved because of this session. Then second, we will cover covering the coverage of e-invoicing, means which document you have to prepare or which document required to report. So not we avoid the word prepared. So you are not preparing any new document. You are just reporting your original document to the government portal. So what are the documents that covered under the e-invoicing and that required to be reported to the government portal, that we are going to cover in second part. In third process, that means which are the way by which the company can report it to the government portal. And this is after that process, we are going to discuss certain FAQ or frequently asked questions. So we received many questions. So on the basis of that, whatever the questions we are receiving regularly, so we are going to discuss that so that many of the queries get sorted out. Then we will discuss the challenges. So if you are a recipient or if you are supplier, what are the challenges you are going to face because of e-invoicing? And last, preparedness. So if you your company is required to prepare for the invoicing, what are the steps to be followed so that from 1st April the e-invoicing can be implemented smoothly? And lastly, definitely queries. We will discuss one-to-one queries of the participant. So let's start our today's sessions from applicability of the e-invoicing. So first question of maybe in everyone whoever joining the participant, first question, whether e-invoicing is applicable to my company or my firm. So applicability, as far as applicability is concerned, the e-invoicing was made applicable from 1st October 2020. So first e-invoicing concept was applicable or made applicable to the businesses having the turnover above 500 crore from 1st October 2020. So 1st October 2020, invoicing made mandatory to the businesses of 500 having the turnover above 500. Afterwards, from the 1st January 2020, the invoicing is made mandatory for the businesses having the turnover more than 100 crore. And now the notification with respect to businesses having a turnover more than 50 crore, the invoicing is going to be implemented from the 1st April 2020. So if you see the dates, first it's implemented on 1st October, after 3 months on 1st January, and now after 3 months from 1st April, it will be going to applicable for the businesses having the turnover more than 50 crore. So if we see this trend, now the second could be, or second date could be the 1st July. That means after the 3 months, it can be possible that e-invoicing is applicable to all entities, or at least the entities having the turnover about 10 crore. So if we see 3 months gap, the 1st July could be the another date afterwards. So now for 1st April. So today's our focus is on the 1st April and how we will prepare for the 1st April. So what is the applicability? So whether e-invoicing is required to be prepared from the 1st April or not, the applicability. So if you have to see the applicability, 3 notifications has to be released. First, notification 70 by 2020. It should be read with original notification 13 by 2020, and now the new notifications which is issued currently on notification number 5 by 2020. So these 3 notifications can be referred for the purpose of applicability of the e-invoicing, to whom e-invoicing is applicable. So if you read these 3 notifications together, It says that hereby notifies a registered person other than those referred in sub rules. So other than some person, that means there are certain exceptions to whom e-invoicing is not applicable. That exception we will see afterwards. Let's read again. Hereby notifies the registered person other than certain person whose aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 1718 onwards. That means if the aggregate turnover in any of the financial year from 1718, that means 1718, 1819, 1920 and 2021 is not finished, but if 2020 and also it exceeds 50 crore, then e-invoicing get applicable in any of the financial year from 1718 onwards. If aggregate turnover exceeds 50 crore, then e-invoicing is get applicable. Now read again to which supply invoicing is get applicable. So that 50 crore as the class of the registered person. So it's applicable to registered person. So if your company is registered under GST, then only it's applicable. Who shall prepare the invoice and other prescribed document in the terms of the rule 48.4 of the said rule in respect of supply of the goods. So to which documents it's applicable? In respect of supply of the goods or services or both to a registered person. That means supply of the goods and services to a registered person. So it's applicable only in the case of the B2B supply and or for exports and exports. So it's applicable only to B2B supply and supply of the goods and services. So applicable to services also, only to B2B supply, and it's also applicable to exports. So what are the key takeaways from this reading? First, it is applicable if aggregate turnover of any of the preceding any of the preceding financial year from 1718. So from 1718, any of the preceding financial year aggregate turnover exceeds the 50 crore, then it's applicable, and it's applicable to supply of the goods and services to registered person, that means B2B supply, and for the export, that means export, it get applicable. Now the key term is aggregate turnover. So you have to compute, or company has to compute the aggregate turnover, whether my aggregate turnover is exceeding 50 crore or not. So aggregate turnover is very essential to understand what is means by aggregate turnover and how you can compute that aggregate turnover. So friends, aggregate turnover is defined under the GST law, and section 2(6) can be referred for that purpose. If you see the definition of aggregate turnover means all taxable supply. That means you have to include all the taxable supplies for the purpose of computing of the aggregate turnover, excluding the value of the inward supply to which the reverse charge applicable. You are aware that in 3B, you pay the reverse charge under that column B2B or B2C, that reverse charge is not includable. So if you are paying the liability under the reverse charge, that is not includable in the aggregate turnover. So aggregate turnover only include the all taxable supplies, outward supply, exempt supply, export of goods or services, both, and interstate. So any interstate supply between the same PAN, that means if the company having the branch office outside the state, then you may aware that there is a deemed person, it called as deemed person, and the tax invoice is to be prepared for the services and goods rendered to that branch or that GST, and even though having a same PAN. So that supply is also is to be included for the purpose of computing of the aggregate turnover. Second, aggregate turnover should be computed on all India basis. That means it should be on PAN level. So a company having a PAN, having a presence in, let's say, 4 states, then all and having the 4 GSTN. So each state having 1 GSTN and one, but the company's PAN is same. So they have to compute the aggregate turnover for the PAN level. Once aggregate turnover of PAN level exceeds the 50 crore, then for all branches that e-invoicing criteria get applicable. So it should be PAN level. It is not on GSTN level. So aggregate turnover has to be computed on PAN all India level basis or PAN number basis. So this is about how to compute the aggregate turnover. Now, how to check the applicability? So friends, if you see the e-invoicing portal, or many of you may aware about the e-invoicing portal, that gives the enablement status. So many of the GST payers has already enabled for the purpose of the e-invoicing or for preparation of the e-invoicing. But that enabled status is on the basis of the GST return files from the 17-18. So in any of the financial year, as far as GST return is concerned, if aggregate supply exceeds the 50 crores, then they had enabled on the portal that you are liable to prepare the GST. But whether that enablement is correct or not. So friends, don't trust on that enablement. Please check your aggregate turnover, and for that your company whether really the invoicing is applicable, because that enablement is based on the GST return. If that GST return does not contain the exempt supply like interest on deposit, or maybe certain exports, or maybe certain exempt supply uh, you are dealing with the mutual fund, etc. So such a exempt supply may not be included while filing of the GST return, or school fee, etc. Whatever exempted under the GST has not been included while reporting the transaction in the GST. Then such while enablement or the GST return, then enablement is could be the wrong, and hence don't rely on the enablement status of the portal. Even government authorities themselves has clarified that the please check your aggregate turnover as per your balance sheet or the financial statement, or as per your present status. So check your aggregate turnover, include all taxable supply, exempt supply, export or interstate supply between the branch, etc. And compute other PAN level based aggregate turnover and decide whether the e-invoicing is applicable or not. So don't rely on enablement status. Now, as discussed, when we had discussed about the applicability, we had discussed that for other, it's applicable to notified person other than certain person. That means certain persons are exempted. And what are those exempted person? So friends, for the purpose of exemption, notification, so certain notification has to be referred. So notification 13. So notification 13 can be referred, 13 and notification 61. So notification 30 by 2021 and notification 61 by 2021 can be referred. As per these both notification, SEZ units are exempt to prepare the e-invoicing. So for SEZ unit, e-invoicing is not applicable. Please note that if you refer that notification, it says SEZ unit and not the SEZ developer. So e-invoicing is applicable to SEZ developer. It's not applicable to only SEZ unit. Now, Rule 54. If you read Rule 54 with the notification 14 by 2020, then the e-invoicing is not applicable to insurer company, banking company, financial institution, NBFCs, GTA services, passenger transport services, and admission to multiplex for the firm. Now, the question arises in case, let's say example, whether in case of banking company, I am engaged in the banking transaction, as well as one of the banking companies engaged in the business of renting. So they are having a property and they had given that property, or because of Corona, maybe property of the bank is not utilized fully, and then hence an additional income bank thought that we should give it on the rent. Then whether rent is exempted to the for the purpose of e-invoicing. So friends, please note that the by way of clarification via FAQ, even the video recorded on by the GSTN can be referred for that purpose. So that exemption is for the business and not for the entity. That means that applicable to banking business. So whatever the banking transaction is doing by the banking company, that exemption is applicable. If banking company is engaged in the commercial transaction, that means for renting of the commercial property or renting of residential, whatever, if they are engaged in the any of such a transaction, then the e-invoicing is required to prepare. So keep in mind, exemption is for business and not for the entity. Now, this is about the exemption. So we had seen applicability, we had seen exemption. Now, to whom e-invoicing is relevant? So as a supplier, only supplier is or e-invoicing is relevant only to the supplier, or even IMO or any company, whoever the participants had joined, any company or the any company having the 50 crores or below 50 crores as a recipient, e-invoicing is relevant. So to get the answer of this question, let's see certain provisions under the GST law. So if you refer first legal provision 266, is as per section 266, invoice or tax invoice means the tax invoice referred under section 31. That means whatever tax invoice referred under section 31 is said to be tax invoice for the purpose of GST law. If you refer to section 31 says that tax invoice should be prepared in such a manner as may be prescribed. So it should be prepared in the manner as prescribed. And section 46 says the manner, or rule 48 says the manner for issuing of the invoice. And that manner says that the invoice reference number, that is IRN number, should be, or it should be prepared in the on the electronic portal in the manner as prescribed. So as per rule 48, the e-invoicing is compulsory for certain reporting of the invoice to the government portal is compulsory to consider it as a tax invoice for the purpose of GST law. Now, let's come to the section 16. As far as section 16 concerned, if the recipient has to avail the input tax credit, section 16 subclause 2 subclause A says that he should possess the tax invoice. Now, friends, let's say one of the condition for availment of the invoice is the tax invoice, and tax invoice is not valid if your vendor has applicable, or vendor is applicable, or e-invoicing is made applicable from the 1st April to that vendor, and the vendor has not issued the proper invoicing in the manner prescribed, then definitely as per section 16(2), you are not going to possess the tax invoice as required under the law, and that ITC can undergo in future in litigation. So if you have to, or any company has to avoid the litigation, please keep in mind that the e-invoicing is not only relevant from the perspective of the supplier, but as a recipient also e-invoicing is very relevant to check the applicability or to avoid the litigation in future with respect to input tax credit. So this is about the e-invoicing applicability. So till now we had seen to whom e-invoicing applicable, definitely whose aggregate turnover is above 50 crore, we had seen e-invoicing applicable. We had seen certain exemption, that means to whom e-invoicing is not applicable. In addition to that, relevance of the e-invoicing we have seen. So let's start our second topic related to coverage. That means which documents once you or your company you understand that our company is going to apply, or the invoicing is going to apply from 1st April. Then which documents would cover under the e-invoicing? So we'll see what is the coverage. So friends, first, to whom required to generate the e-invoicing? Whether supplier required to generate, whether recipient required to generate. So e-invoicing is required to be generated by the supplier only. So as far as e-way bill is concerned, you are aware that e-way bill can be generated by supplier, recipient, and transporter. But that's not the case of e-invoicing. E-invoicing has to be generated by the supplier only at the time of the supply. Whenever tax invoice is issued for that supply, the e-invoicing is to be generated, or the reporting to the portal is to be by the supplier only. Second, e-commerce operator. So e-invoicing is also can be generated by e-commerce operator. So whoever is selling the goods through the e-commerce operator, so e-commerce operator can generate the e-invoicing for that supply. Now, to which documents e-invoicing applicable? So simply documents cover under e-invoicing is with respect to supply of the goods and services. And for supply of the goods and services, any company has to issue three documents, that is tax invoice, debit note and credit note, and all that three document e-invoicing. So all these three document is required to be reported on online portal. So this for this document e-invoicing is applicable. Now, to which document e-invoicing is not applicable? So friends, if you are issuing a bill of supply, that means any company is dealing with or supplying exempted goods or exempted services. So let's say any education institution giving a school fee and that is exempted, and that issuing the bill of supply, then in such a cases e-invoicing is not applicable. For refund voucher, e-invoicing is not applicable. For self-invoice, that means under the RCM, for the RCM for availment of the credit, the company is required to issue the self-invoice, but that self-invoice is not required to be reported to the government portal. So for self-invoice, e-invoicing is not applicable. For receipt voucher, e-invoicing is not applicable. For payment voucher, e-invoicing is not applicable. Even for ISD invoices, invoicing is not applicable. So these are the documents where e-invoicing is not applicable. So simply to understand for which documents or whatever supply or taxable supply meant to register person and whatever document issued for that supply under the forward charge mechanism, the e-invoicing is get applicable. Revert charge, it's not applicable. So if as a lawyer, let's say if a lawyer providing the services to the company and company has to pay under revert charge, then e-invoicing is not applicable in such a scenario. But in case of forward charge, it get applicable. Now, e-invoicing as discussed applicable to register person, that means only to B2B supply. B2G, definitely if government is registered, then for the business to government, so business to government, any supply to the government, e-invoicing is applicable. For export, e-invoicing is applicable. But if you supply with respect to B2C, e-invoicing is not applicable. The separate procedure of QR code is applicable for the B2C transaction, and that is made applicable from the December only for the companies having the turnover above 500 crores. So all other turnover it's not applicable yet. But for B2C, keep in mind QR code is applicable. E-invoicing is not applicable for the B2C transaction. Now this is about the document which once e-invoicing is get applicable, which documents the company has to report to the online portal. We had seen the documents, tax invoice, debit note, and credit note. Now, sorry, tax invoice, debit note, and yes, credit note that has to, and in addition to that, whatever the export invoices you had issued, you had to report to the government portal. Now, we had seen about the applicability, we had seen which documents are coverage of the invoicing. Now, process. Now, you had understand that the your company is required to generate the invoicing. For these documents, e-invoicing applicable. Now, how I can prepare the e-invoicing? So, as a company, how we can prepare or what is the process for generation of the e-invoicing? So, friends, as far as portal is concerned, they had provided two test sites. That means on that sites you can get the trial to generate the e-invoicing. So before 1st April 2021, this site can be used for the testing purpose. And that two sites are, first site is e-invoicing1-trial.nic.in. This can be used as a trial for the trial version. Second is for sandbox testing, that is einv-api sandbox.nic.in. So these two sites are for the testing purpose. And main e-invoicing portal is e-invoicing1.gst.gov. On that portal, the company has to generate the e-invoicing from the 1st April. Before 1st April, the test sites or the sandbox testing or the trial version can be used, or these two sites can be used for the purpose of the trial. Now, once you look into the site, so whenever if you are having a computer, you may use that site, or after session you can go through that site. It's very much easy. But what is the process for generation of the invoicing? So first process is enablement. So we had already discussed about the enablement. So government, on the basis of data available on the GST portal or whatever data the companies has filed at the time of the GSTR1 or GSTR3B, they are clubbing that data, and on the basis of that data, they had enabled a certain taxpayer for the purpose of the e-invoice generation of the e-invoicing. But that enablement status is not final, and government themselves saying that the please check aggregate turnover company wise. So friends, if as a company, let's say you had enabled on the, so whenever you are checking, you can check first you have to go on the e-invoicing portal, main your e-invoicing portal. Under the other tab, if you go to the other tab option, there is an e-invoice enablement status. If you enter your GSTN or company GSTN, then you get the enablement status. If that status is enabled and the company's aggregate turnover is also exceeds 50 crore as per the computation or at actual, then initiate e-invoicing immediately. Now, if a company's aggregate turnover does not exceed 50 crore, that means even the status is enabled and company's turnover does not, but as per competition, company's turnover does not exceed the 50 crore, then please intimate to the portal that our turnover not exceeds. So how they had computed and on the which basis they had computed. Please get that data. If you are choosing that the company is not liable for the e-invoicing. Now, second scenario can be whenever company or company status could be not enabled as per the portal. In such a cases, check aggregate turnover, and as per company's calculation, if aggregate turnover exceeds 50 crore, then then please initiate and request. First, you have to request to the portal. So there is a mail ID provided. You have to request to the GSTN that the or you have to request to the portal that the initiate or the enabled our status for the purpose of the initiation of the e-invoicing. So on the NIC portal or the e-invoicing portal, you can has to mail, you can mail them or you can call them and request them for the enablement and get enabled status for your company. And if it's a not enabled status and as per the your competition also its aggregate turnover is not exceeds 50 crore, then uh, intimate the rationale that the company has not having the turnover 50 crore and hence e-invoicing is not applicable. So don't go by enablement status. Please compute your aggregate turnover and based on that take the decision what you have to take the way forward for the company. So first enablement status. So check your enablement status is the first process. Second, once it's enabled, take the registration. Now, if you have to register or company has to register on the online portal, then there are two ways to register. First, through the e-way bill login. So if company has having e-way bill login, then the same login ID can be used on the e-invoicing portal for the purpose of login on the e-invoicing portal. And the company, let's say service sector, which is yet not registered on the e-way bill portal, then in such a cases for such a service sector, they can create the new login ID on the, and login process is very simple. You have to select the login option or register option. You have to enter the GST and all details get automatically populated. One OTP you will receive and your registration gets. So two ways to log in. First, by e-way bill. So whoever having a e-way bill login ID, please use that login ID for directly to log into the portal, or you can create a new login ID if you are not having an e-way bill login ID. So take registration first, enablement, then take registration, then choose the methodology. So after that, you have to choose, or the company has to choose what methodology they are going to follow for the preparation of the e-invoicing. Now, what are the methodologies for the preparation of the invoicing? So modes of generation, the e-invoicing portal gives the three modes of generation. First, offline bulk uploading facility. That means as per GSTR1, many of yours may aware about the offline tool of the GSTR1. Similar way, offline tool for the preparation of the e-invoicing is available. and that offline tool can be used for the purpose of, so you have to fill that offline utility, then you have to generate the JSON. That JSON can be uploaded on the online portal, and IRN can be, you can get the IRN and QR code, and that can be printed on the, so this methodology can be by way of the offline bulk upload facility. But friends, please note that whatever our experience, that offline bulk upload facility can be used only by those entities having a less number of invoices. It can't be used for the more invoices. So it's not user friendly much. So it took a time if you are having a more invoices. So it's better to automate in such a scenario. So offline bulk upload facility can be used for the limited, whoever generating the limited invoices daily. Now, second mode of generation is direct API integration. That means company's system or company can automate or directly integrate on the e-invoicing portal. So that direct API integration is also available on e-invoicing portal, or API integration through GSP. So if, instead of direct, through GSP can be integrated to e-invoicing portal. In such cases, once you prepare the tax invoice, the e-invoicing get automatically generated, or e-invoicing or that tax invoicing can be reported to the government automatically. But friends, as per the information provided by the NIC or the e-invoicing portal, certain categories of the person has not enabled or can't access the direct API access. So through GSP, the turnover having a more than 500 crore and also below 500 crore can use GSP option. ERP option is available to both. Only the direct API option. So direct API option is only available for the companies having turnover more than 500 crore. It's not applicable to the companies having turnover below 500 crore. But through direct API that can access the portal. That means the turnover, if you are the supplier of the company whose turnover is above 500 crore, through that direct API access or through the direct API access, the supplier can access the portal or can use the direct API to integrate the portal. So through direct API access is available. And again, the if e-way bill is already automated, or for the company having e-way bill API access, then that can be used by all the companies. So just keep in mind that till now direct API access is only available if the company's turnover is more than 500 crore. So for less than 500 crore, direct API access is not available. Now, next, we had seen modes of generation. So first, enablement check, take registration, choose methodology. So any one of the methodology can be chosen, and then use the sandbox testing. So on the basis of sandbox testing, so we had seen that the two portals are available for the sandbox testing. So e-invoicing trial, wherein you can use the trial version for e-invoicing preparation, and sandbox testing for the standard testing, e-invoicing portal sandbox testing available. So use that portal for the purpose of sandbox before implementation. So from 1st April, before doing or generating the e-invoicing on actual basis, use the sandbox testing for the testing is very important, friend, because from 1st April, you can't generate the incorrect invoicing. There is no option to generate the incorrect invoicing, no trial and error option. So please use the sandbox testing before 1st April itself, and use that for the generation of e-way bill, e-invoicing now only. Now, using online portal automation or through the automation mode, start e-invoicing from the 1st April. So this is the process. First, check enablement. Whenever you are going to take registration, then choose your methodology, how you are going to prepare, or you can check the what methodology for your organization is suitable, then use the sandbox testing option, and then for 1st April, you should be prepared for the e-invoicing. Now, as far as the invoicing concerns, certain aspects has to required to be considered. So if you see the invoicing schema, there are certain mandatory particulars and certain optional particulars. Mandatory contents are like that: name of the supplier, GST and address, name. So whatever red mark are the mandatory content which the company has to complete. There are certain contents or optional contents like contract number, project reference number, vendor PO number, origin. These are the optional. So where if company required, that can be filled. If not required, then it is not required to be filled, even that e-invoicing is valid. Now, one of the parameter which is very key, don't use the zero before the number. So system can't understand the 001. System take it as in one only. So uh, you can use the zero after one. So before one. So the invoicing invoice or tax invoice number cannot be start with the 001. It should it because machine read it as in one. The machine can't read it 00. So please start with tax invoice with the number with the numerical character other than zero. So again, as far as schema is concerned, the schema has undergone a change drastically by days, or whenever the any of the taxpayer reports to the portal or the reports to the authorities that these changes are required, e-invoicing schema got changed accordingly. So certain new fields added like discount, other charges, export duty, etc. But till now, the TCS, so whoever TCS applicable, TCS is not available on the schema. So if your company has a TCS, then you can add it in other charges. So other charges field is available under the e-invoicing schema. Now, what is the process flow chart? So friends, we had discussed that you have to prepare the JSON, or once your tax invoice reported to the IRN portal, the IRN portal validate that details or validate as per validation criteria or compulsory parameters. Then once it validates, that generate the IRP or QR code, and that QR code and signed JSON is shared with the supplier, and supplier can get that JSON and use that JSON and QR code for the printing on the tax invoice. Now the IRP's second process flow, this process flow ends with supplier, but second process flow is that IRP communicate data to the GST system. As far as whenever IRP communicate it to the GSTR system, the company GSTR1 get updated, and after that the supply buyer's GSTR2A also get updated. So from IRP to GST system, from GST to buyer's GST, this is the flow of the data. So GSTR1 will get updated once you prepare the e-invoicing. So this is how you look the e-invoicing. Whenever you download, this is the e-invoicing. This is the black square is the QR code. If you see the QR code or IRN consists of the 64-digit hash function. It is a 64-digit, and it's like a barcode. And it contains what are the number content. QR code contains GSTN of the supplier, GSTN of the recipient, invoice number, then date of generation of the invoice, invoice value, number of lines of items, then HSN code of the main items, and URK, that is unique invoice reference number, that is the hash number. So these are the parameters which are contained under the QR code or the 64 number digit of the IRN. Now, for the valid tax invoice, please note that the printing of the QR code on the tax invoice is essential. QR code can be placed at anywhere on the top of the invoices, but only keep in mind it should be on the front of the invoices. So it can be pasted on the front of the tax invoice generated. Now, QR code is a 64 digit encoded and unencrypted. And the printing of the IRN. So printing of the QR code on the tax invoice is compulsory. Printing of the IRN is optional. So if company required, that can be printed. But if company does not require, then can't be. It's optional. IRN can't be. IRN may or may not be printed on the tax invoice. But QR code is compulsory. You have to print the QR code on the tax invoice. Now, certain other key aspects. Now, many of the taxpayer asking us whether we can cancel the e-invoice were generated. So friends, please keep in mind the e-invoicing can't be cancelled after the 24 hours. So within 24 hours, e-invoicing can be cancelled. if any error is happen while reporting. Second, if you have to compare, company has to compute cancel the e-invoicing, then first e-way bill is required to be cancelled. So you have to cancel the e-way bill, then e-invoicing, and then tax invoice also. So for the same tax invoice, again e-invoicing can be prepared. So it's compulsory that the company has to cancel the tax invoice, because for that number now IRN can't be prepared. So if any of the invoicing get reported incorrectly, then first keep in mind that the cancel IRN along with the tax invoice and prepare new tax invoice for reporting to the government portal. So flow chart for the preparation of the invoicing. So e-invoicing, if has to prepare, what is the flow? Tax invoice, e-invoicing, and then e-way bill. But for the purpose of cancellation, flow is the first has to cancel the e-way bill, then e-invoicing, and then cancel the tax invoice and prepare the new invoice. But it should be within 24 hours. After 24 hours, it can't be cancelled. Now, one of the option which can be used by the big company is the user management. So there is an user management. Many of the this same option is available on the e-way bill portal also. By way of user management, sub user can be created. So there could be one main user and the other sub user. If one user could have an access of complete e-way bill portal, and the sub user that user can create the sub user and give the optional offer, that means or the optional authorities. That means one user can enable only the generation of the invoicing. That means that sub user can only generate the invoicing. One user can only cancel the invoicing, or one user can enable the report. So such a sub user can be created. For the one principal place of business, 10 sub user can be created. That means if you are having one more additional place of business, then for the two place of businesses, 20 sub user can be created. Definitely this option can be used whenever you want to allot the certain functions to the sub users, or the e-invoicing can be smoothly flow from within the organization. Then two or more users can, one user can create the e-invoicing, one user can cancel the invoicing. In such a scenario, that sub user option will be helpful. Now, what are the challenges before the companies? So as a supplier, there are certain challenges before the supplier, but as a recipient also, you're having certain challenges. And what are that challenges? So first of all, as a supplier, definitely the compliance is going to be increased drastically, because first of all, it is a real-time compliance. Second, you have to one more. Now the company is having one more login ID. So you are presently having the GST portal login ID, e-way bill login ID, and now the one more login ID of the e-invoicing. So that e-invoicing login ID is there. Second, drastic compliance is the reconciliation, friends, because as we had discussed, the flow of data is the tax invoice, e-invoicing, e-way bill, and that going to be reported to the GST portal. That means GSTR1 is going to be updated. So once GSTR1 is updated, if you see the advisory of the GST, and GST themselves has accepted that don't refer the updated data or automatically updated GSTR1. You have to reconcile with that GSTR1 or automatically updated GSTR1 with the company's books of accounts. So don't refer directly the automated GSTR1 data or B2B on the basis of e-invoicing. So we had seen that in certain scenario, even e-invoicing generated GSTR1 has not updated, or in certain scenario it get updated twice. So reconciliation is one of the compliance for the supplier perspective, and it's a monthly compliance. So don't rely on the automatically generated GSTR1. Please reconcile it with the books of accounts. Again, the 2A get updated, and the 2B will update only when they file the return. So again, reconciliation of 2A, 2B, GSTR1, and e-invoicing data. Again, 2 or 3 reconciliations will get added. So as far as our view, 4 reconciliations will get added to the supplier. Supplier also has to reconcile e-invoicing, e-way bill. So for certain, let's say for services, e-way bill is not applicable. So in case of supply of services, please note that the e-way bill, don't click on the e-way bill generation, don't generate the e-way bill, because for services, e-way bill is not applicable. So the company has to reconcile e-invoicing with the e-way bill also. So these are the some of the challenges before the supplier. As a recipient, what the challenge? So as a company, if I am a recipient, then for the goods, I should possess the tax invoice, e-way bill, and also the tax invoice with QR code if my vendor having a turnover above 50 crore. As a service recipient, we have to possess the tax invoice and a bill of supplier invoice or the tax invoice with QR code if the vendor's aggregate turnover 50 crore. So as a recipient, first, foremost question, if the entity has to or does not want to litigate the ITC, please ask your vendor whether the vendor is above 50 crore or aggregate turnover is above 50 crore or not. Please maintain the separate register or vendor register for the vendor to whom e-invoicing is applicable and for the vendor to whom e-invoicing is not applicable, at least till the time to all vendor e-invoicing get applicable. Second, from now itself, so it's now I think almost 10 days are over and very few 15-20 days are remains for the implementation. So initiate discussion now only with the vendor for the applicability of the e-invoicing. Communicate to the vendor through mail. Please communicate whether the e-invoicing is applicable, whether the aggregate turnover exceeds the 50 crore. Also, it's preferable that through agreement or so many of agreement is now going to be renewed in the March end. At the time of renewal, please describe about the compliance related to the e-invoicing and what are the way forward or what are the or that agreement or PO should refer the litigations or the who is responsible and who is, whether the supplier or recipient is responsible if the e-invoicing is not compliant, and what if the ITC get disallowed, who is the responsible for that ICC. That should be covered by way of the PO or agreement properly. So this should be covered in the agreement itself. It will help in the future to litigate if any ITC is under the litigation on account of e-invoicing. So these are the certain key steps as a recipient has to be followed. So even as a recipient, there are certain key steps. Second, change the accounting system. It's better that while at the time of accounting itself, capture the data of the vendors of the invoices which are with QR code and the invoices without QR code. So whenever authorities visit for the audit purpose or department intend to visit, you will have a readily data available for the e-invoicing or readily data available with respect to the vendor where invoicing was applicable and with respect to vendor invoicing is not applicable. So capture at the time of accounting itself. Now how to capture? If you see, if you go to the e-invoicing portal, government has given one app and this is available for the Android user. So that is a mobile app that can be downloaded and that can be used for the QR code. So whenever you receive the or company receives the e-invoicing with the QR code, that QR code can be scanned with the help of that app and you will get the IRN of 64 digits. So you can validate the e-invoicing, that can be validated and you can get the 64 that can be used for the purpose of accounting system. So you should automate that whenever there is a e-invoicing, then that should be recorded separately, and other than e-invoicing, only the tax invoice that should be recorded separately. Now these are the certain challenges and way forward as a recipient and as a supplier. Now whether are you ready for the implementation? So what are the steps to be followed for the preparedness? So friends, whether it is a process change or technology change, please understand as an organization, whether as an organization for your organization, whether it's qualify as a process change only or it's a technology change. Let's say example, for the small organization, it could be not a major technology change, but it's a process change. So in such a cases, the process of reporting to the government portal, that means the process wherever you are reporting to the government portal get changed. So now you are going to report through the online or offline utility. So if for a small organization, one can say it could be the process change, but for the big organization, it's a technology change, because they had to the organization has to integrate their SAP system or integrate their ERP system to the portal. Then only it's possible that the report on the online portal on daily basis or on real time basis. So it's a technology change, and for technology change, everyone aware that they has to prepare from now itself. So for the readiness plus prepared, whether it's a process change or technology change as an organization. Accordingly, methodology for generation has to be chosen, by which methodology the organization intend to go for the invoicing. Then if automation is required, in case of, so automation is necessary in case of there are many tax invoice or significant tax invoice required to be generated. Friends, internal training, definitely the account team should be aware about the e-invoicing, but as per our view, in addition to finance team, the company's procurement team, sales team, logistics team should also aware about the e-invoicing, because they are the team who are dealing with the vendors and suppliers and the transporter. If they receive the wrong invoice or the incorrect invoice, then the company will be going to suffer. So in addition to finance team, it is necessary that as a company, you should arrange the training or e-invoicing training or concept should be known to the procurement team, sales team, logistic team, etc. So friends, this is about the e-invoicing and e-invoicing concepts.